Madeline Carter had built a life she was proud of. At 42 years old, she was the owner and head chef of the Seaside Table, a thriving restaurant in Charleston, South Carolina, known for its coastal-inspired dishes and warm atmosphere. Her success had come from years of hard work, late nights, and a relentless drive to create something lasting, not just for herself, but for her 6-year-old twins, Sophia and Lucas. She had bought her beautiful waterfront home before she even met Ryan, determined to give her children the stability she had never had growing up. It was more than just a house. It was a symbol of her independence, a safe haven where she tucked her children into bed every night, surrounded by the scent of sea air and the soft glow of porch lights reflecting off the water. Lately, though, that peace had started to crack. Her husband of 7 years, Ryan Carter, had been acting different, more distant, secretive, his phone always within arm's reach. The man who once stayed up late to talk about their dreams now barely made eye contact, his mind seemingly elsewhere. Madeline had tried to ignore the nagging feeling in her gut, convincing herself it was just the stress of running his real estate development firm. But when he slid a stack of legal documents across their marble kitchen island one evening, her unease turned to alarm. "It's just for tax purposes," Ryan said smoothly, his tone casual, but his fingers tapped impatiently on the countertop. "You've always been smart about finances. This is what's best for us." Madeline's eyes dropped to the house transfer papers, the official letterhead stark against the white page. The home she had bought with her own hard-earned money, the one she had spent years renovating and making perfect for her children, would be placed solely in Ryan's name. Something inside her tightened. She should have trusted him. He was her husband, the father of her children. And yet, when he reached across the counter to take her hand, something about his touch felt different, colder, calculated. "I don't know, Ryan," she said slowly, her voice quieter than she expected. "This house? It's my security." For a moment, something flickered across Ryan's face. Was it anger, frustration, or something worse? That night, as she lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, a single thought whispered in the back of her mind. Something isn't right. The next morning, as Madeline bustled around her restaurant preparing for the lunch rush, her mind kept drifting back to the house transfer papers. The more she thought about it, the less it made sense. Ryan had always been ambitious, but he had never taken much interest in their home's financial details before. Why now? And why the sudden urgency? Her instincts screamed that something was off, so she decided to reach out to the one person she knew would give her an honest answer, Isabella Monroe, her closest friend and a real estate attorney. During a quick coffee break, Madeline slid into a booth at the restaurant, her phone pressed to her ear as Isabella's voice came through. "Ryan wants you to sign what?" Isabella's tone sharpened with concern. "He says it's for tax purposes," Madeline explained, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. "That it'll be better for us in the long run." There was a pause before Isabella spoke again, her voice firm. "Maddie, that makes no sense. If the house is already in your name and was purchased before marriage, transferring it to him would give you no financial benefit. If anything, it would complicate things. You'd be giving up your sole ownership." Madeline's stomach dropped. Ryan had counted on her trusting him, on her being too busy with work and the twins to question him. But now, a different question gnawed at her. Why would he want the house in his name alone? Determined to find answers, she started paying closer attention to Ryan's behavior. Over the next few days, small details began to stand out. His late nights at the office, the extra hours at the gym, the way he never let his phone out of his sight. At dinner, he barely looked up from his screen, his responses to her or the kids distracted and vague. Then, one morning, while paying bills in her restaurant office, a strange charge on their joint credit card caught her attention, a purchase at an upscale boutique she had never visited. Her heart pounded as she pulled up more statements, noticing multiple charges at high-end restaurants, spa reservations, and luxury stores. A sickening realization washed over her. Gripping her phone, she did something she had never done before. She checked their phone records. A repeated number showed up. One Ryan had been calling for months, often late at night or during times when he was supposedly working late. Her hands trembled as she did a reverse phone lookup. A name appeared on the screen: Olivia Brooks. Curious, she searched Olivia on social media and froze when she saw a recent post. A picture of a young, stylish woman with perfectly curled hair, standing inside a luxury real estate office. The caption read, "Big changes ahead, new beginnings, excited for the future." Madeline felt like the air had been sucked from her lungs. She wasn't just dealing with financial manipulation. Ryan was planning to take her house, and he wasn't planning on living in it alone. Madeline sat in the dim light of her restaurant's office, staring at Olivia Brooks' social media post, her heart pounding in her chest. The pieces of the puzzle were clicking together. But she needed more than just suspicions. She needed proof. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her phone and dialed Nathan Blake, a respected divorce attorney Isabella had recommended. "I don't want to jump to conclusions," Madeline began, her voice steadier than she felt. "But something isn't right. My husband is pushing me to sign over my house, and I just found out he's been seeing another woman. A younger woman. I need to know what my options are." Nathan listened carefully, then said, "First, do not sign anything. If he's pushing this hard, it's because he stands to gain something. Second, if you suspect deception, you need solid evidence. Have you thought about recording any of your conversations?" Madeline hesitated. Recording Ryan? The thought made her skin crawl. But as she looked at Olivia's beaming face on her phone screen, she realized she didn't have a choice. "I'll do whatever it takes." That afternoon, she drove to a discreet electronics store tucked away in a strip mall outside town. The elderly store owner barely raised an eyebrow when she explained what she needed: a small, high-quality recording device that could be easily hidden. "Protect yourself," he said quietly as he placed the device in her hand. "The best evidence is in their own words." That evening she arrived home before Ryan, her mind racing with what she was about to do. With careful precision, she slipped the device inside the kitchen cabinet, positioning it near the spot where Ryan always stood when discussing finances. Then she started dinner, keeping her demeanor calm and natural, even as tension coiled in her stomach like a tightened spring. When Ryan finally walked in, he looked mildly surprised to see her home early. "No late shift today?" he asked casually, shrugging off his jacket and reaching for his phone. "As always." "I thought we could talk more about the house," Madeline said, keeping her voice neutral as she stirred a pot of pasta sauce. "I've been thinking about what you said." His eyes flickered with something. Relief? Triumph? "I knew you'd come around," he said smoothly, stepping closer. "It's really the smartest move for us, Mads. Once we transfer it to my name, we can make the kind of real estate decisions that benefit our future." Madeline gritted her teeth but forced a small nod. "And you're sure this is what's best for us?" Ryan smiled, that same easy charm he used on real estate investors and business partners. "Of course, babe. Trust me." As she listened, the recording device captured every word, every carefully calculated lie. What Ryan didn't know was that his plan had just started to unravel. One recorded sentence at a time. A week later, Ryan came home, beaming with confidence, holding a folder of freshly printed documents. He slid them onto the kitchen island, the same spot where this entire ordeal had begun. "All set," he said, his tone casual but laced with impatience. "I've already signed my part, just need your signature and we can put this behind us." Madeline stared at the stack of betrayal in front of her. She could feel Ryan's eyes on her, waiting, expecting her to just give in. But she didn't pick up the pen. Instead, she folded her arms and met his gaze. "Before I sign, we should probably talk about Olivia." Ryan's entire body stiffened. The smug expression wavered for half a second before he forced out a short laugh. "Who?" Madeline reached for her phone, tapping the screen with calculated ease before holding it up for him to see. A photo of Olivia, smiling in a real estate office, captioned, "Big changes ahead, new beginnings." Ryan's jaw clenched. "Madeline, I don't know what you think." She cut him off. "I also don't think I need to remind you that I checked our phone records." She scrolled further, showing him his repeated calls to Olivia over the last several months. "But just in case that isn't enough, I also recorded our little chat the other night." Madeline pressed play, and Ryan's own voice filled the kitchen. "Once we transfer it to my name, we can make the kind of real estate decisions that benefit our future." His face drained of color. The once confident, smooth-talking businessman was now a man caught in his own web of deception. "You—" Ryan started, but his words caught in his throat. "You were trying to steal my house," Madeline said, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. "For her." Ryan's mask finally cracked, his face darkened with anger. "You've been spying on me," he spat. "I've been protecting myself," she corrected. "Which is more than I can say for you." Ryan slammed his hand against the counter, his frustration bubbling over. "You don't understand. Things haven't been right between us for a long time. You're always at the restaurant, always too busy." "Don't you dare," Madeline snapped, her voice cold. "Don't you dare blame me for your lies. I built my business to give our family a future. You were the one planning a future with someone else." Ryan raked a shaking hand through his hair, realizing he had lost control of the situation. "You have no idea what you've done, Madeline," he muttered, voice low with barely concealed rage. Madeline picked up the unsigned transfer papers, took one last look at them, then ripped them in half. "No, Ryan," she said, her voice steady. "I know exactly what I've done. I've taken back my power." And for the first time in a long time she felt free. Ryan stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the front door behind him, but Madeline barely flinched. She had spent too many years compromising, ignoring red flags, making excuses, but not anymore. That night she called Nathan Blake, her attorney, and set the wheels in motion. "It's time," she told him, her voice unwavering. "Let's make sure he never gets his hands on my house or my future." The next morning, Ryan made the first move, as she had expected. His lawyer sent over divorce papers, demanding half of everything, including her restaurant, and of course the house. It was almost laughable. Ryan, the man who had spent months scheming behind her back, now had the audacity to act like the victim. But Madeline had come prepared. At their first court hearing, Nathan methodically presented the evidence, the phone records, the social media posts, and the damning recording of Ryan admitting his plan to take the house. The judge's expression darkened as the details unraveled. Ryan, for all his charm and confidence, sat ashen-faced, his lawyer whispering furiously in his ear. His entire case collapsed in a matter of minutes. But then came the real blow. Nathan had dug deeper. Ryan wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a fraudster. Further investigation into his real estate business revealed that Ryan had been misappropriating company funds, funneling money into lavish gifts and vacations for Olivia, When Nathan presented bank statements and flagged transactions, Madeline watched the blood drain from Ryan's face. "Your Honor," Nathan said, sliding a final document across the table. "His employer has been made aware of these discrepancies, and I believe they are preparing to press charges for embezzlement." The courtroom was silent. Ryan sank back into his chair, his hands gripping the table, his entire life unraveling before him. That evening, Madeline received a single, desperate text from Ryan. "We need to talk. You don't have to do this. Think about the kids." She didn't reply. A week later, Ryan was arrested, his company having officially pressed charges. Olivia, realizing Ryan was broke, jobless, and facing legal trouble, dumped him immediately. Madeline, on the other hand, had never felt stronger. She stood on the porch of her home, watching Sophia and Lucas play in the yard, their laughter ringing through the crisp Charleston air. This house, the one Ryan had tried to steal, was still hers. And as she looked out at her children, safe and happy, she knew one thing for certain. She had won. In the weeks that followed, Madeline felt a sense of lightness she hadn't experienced in years. The constant strain of Ryan's deception, the uneasy feeling in her gut that something was wrong, all of it was gone. The divorce was finalized swiftly thanks to the overwhelming evidence against Ryan. He had no choice but to sign away any claim to her house, her business, and her savings in a desperate attempt to reduce his legal trouble. His punishment was far from over. His former employer had officially filed charges for embezzlement, and his once thriving real estate career was effectively destroyed. Madeline, however, was thriving. Without Ryan's constant undermining, passive-aggressive comments, and manipulative games, she found herself fully focused on her restaurant, the Seaside Table. For years, Ryan had made her feel guilty for working long hours, always implying that she was choosing her career over her family. But now, with no one holding her back, she expanded the business, opened a second location, and even started mentoring young chefs, something she had always dreamed of doing. The twins, Sophia and Lucas, adjusted better than she expected. At first, she worried about how they would handle the changes, but children had a way of adapting faster than adults. Their father, once a constant presence in their lives, had been reduced to supervised visits, and even those became less frequent as his legal troubles escalated. Instead of crying for their father, they clung to Madeline, their bond growing stronger every day. One afternoon, as she and Isabella sat at a cafe, sipping coffee, her friend nudged her playfully. "So, have you thought about dating again?" Madeline laughed, shaking her head. "Not yet. Right now, I'm just enjoying my peace." And it was true. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly content. She had spent too much time cleaning up Ryan's messes, too much energy fighting for what was rightfully hers. Romance could wait. Her happiness and her children came first. That evening, as she sat on her porch, watching the sunset over the Charleston waterfront, she heard Sophia's laughter ring through the air. Lucas was beside her, building a tower with his toy blocks. These were the moments that mattered, the simple, quiet victories of a life reclaimed. She thought about the letter Ryan had sent her a week ago, filled with apologies, regrets, and pleas for forgiveness. She had skimmed it once before, filing it away without responding. Some bridges once burned were never meant to be rebuilt. As she tucked her children into bed that night, Lucas looked up at her with big, sleepy eyes. "Mama, are you happy?" Madeline felt a warmth spread through her chest. She leaned down, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Yes, baby, happier than ever." Months had passed, and life had settled into a new, peaceful rhythm. The house, the one Ryan had tried to steal, was still hers, but more importantly, it was finally a home free of deception. The air felt lighter, the walls no longer held the weight of his lies. And every morning Madeline woke up knowing she was in control of her own future. One afternoon, as she stood in her restaurant's kitchen, reviewing the evening's menu, her phone buzzed with a new message. She glanced down and saw Ryan's name. "I messed up. I miss my family. Please, can we talk?" Madeline stared at the screen for a moment before pressing delete without replying. Some people never changed, and she had no interest in looking back. Later that evening, she sat on the porch with a glass of wine, watching Sophia and Lucas chase fireflies in the yard. Their laughter echoed into the warm Charleston night, filling her with something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. She thought about everything she had lost, but more importantly, everything she had gained: a stronger sense of self, a future where she answered to no one but herself and her children. As Lucas ran up to her, arms wide for a hug, she scooped him up, holding him close. "Mama, are you happy now?" he asked sleepily. Madeline smiled, her heart full in a way she never thought possible. "Yes, baby," she whispered, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "Happier than ever." Madeline's journey teaches a powerful lesson about trusting your instincts, protecting what's yours, and never underestimating your own strength. From the moment Ryan pressured her to transfer the house, her gut told her something was wrong. Instead of dismissing her concerns, she took action, gathered evidence, and uncovered the truth. This highlights the importance of being aware of financial and legal decisions, even in relationships where trust is assumed. Her story also emphasizes that betrayal is not just about infidelity. It's about manipulation and deception. Ryan didn't just cheat on her, he tried to steal the life she built. But Madeline refused to be a victim. By staying calm, strategic, and proactive, she not only protected her assets, but also ensured a better future for her children. Another key lesson is that losing someone who doesn't respect or value you is not a loss, it's freedom. Madeline came out of the situation stronger, happier, and more successful because she removed the toxic influence from her life. Ultimately, her story is one of self-respect, resilience, and empowerment, proving that sometimes walking away from the wrong person is the first step toward truly winning in life.